Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. And thank you for subscribing to the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I am 12 Kyle. Check this out. June is Black Music Month. And if you've been following along with the podcast at the time of this recording, it is the month of June. And I decided to do something a little different this year. I wanted to, other than Father's Day, I was going to make every episode about music. And so, if you've been subscribing and listening, you know that each episode this month so far has been about music, and this one that you're about to hear is an artist feature. And I don't think I've done many artist features on the podcast since I've had it, but I had to do this one. I actually have a list of in my notes folder on my iPhone. Um, I have a list of artist features that I want to do, and I'll be honest, I've had this list for a while, right? Um, and it, I can't even tell you how or why I haven't done it yet, but something I'm like, okay, I'll get to it. I'll get to it. I'll get to it. But no better time than the present to do it, and who better than to do an artist feature on than my man Heavy D. Um, I am a huge Heavy D fan. Um, I go way back with Heavy D. Um, if you've been following the podcast, you know that I it was the concert episode when I talked about uh, my first concert that I went to. The first concert that I attended was a concert at my high school, Wilson High School in Florence, South Carolina. And that particular, in fact, I wasn't even in high school then. I think I was in middle school. Um, but it was my eventual high school. Um, but that night, got a chance to see one of my favorite rappers, and it was Heavy D. And I want to say at the time, man, I don't even think Heavy might have had one song, and it was just it was still incredible to see him. He was a rapper that had come onto the scene, and I'll be honest, like just me and my friends, my crew, and it seems like everybody that I knew, we took a liking to him. Heavy D, as many of you know, was born Dwight Myers. Um, he was born in Jamaica, and he was raised in money earning Mount Vernon, New York. And it's funny because until I heard Heavy D rap and him talk about money earning Mount Vernon, I didn't know where Mount Vernon was. Like I think I'd heard of it, but I didn't know where Mount Vernon was. I mean, who knows these things? But yeah, instantly became a fan, and that was my introduction. And I want to say at that concert, I know Heavy D performed Mr. Big Stuff. He might have done one other song, but I mean, we didn't care. We were young. Again, I want to say I was in like 8th grade. And I don't even know if the album was out yet. If it was out, it wasn't like, like everywhere, anything like that. But it was good to see somebody of what we thought that was famous coming to our little small hometown, performing at our high school. I remember, somebody saying, "Yeah, man, there's a limousine with Heavy D and the boys in it," and it was like a big thing. Like dudes was talking like they'd never seen a limousine before, and some probably hadn't. But you know, from that point, I became a fan. When the first album dropped, huge fan of Heavy D, and I just continued to be a fan up until, you know, it was until he left us, and I'll touch on that in just a few. But who was Heavy D? Um, for those of you listening or watching on YouTube, thank you for watching. Um, Heavy D was one, a very, very respected MC. Heavy D, I would say, and I say this unequivocally, 'At the time that Heavy D was out, There are very few people, or there were very few people on planet Earth that didn't like Heavy D. And you can't say that about most MCs from any era. Find me one person or two people or three people that didn't like Heavy D. You can't. You know why? Because your granny liked Heavy D. Your auntie liked Heavy D. Your mama liked Heavy D. Your daddy liked Heavy D. Because he was a big dude. He was smooth. His raps were understandable. He presented himself well. He didn't curse in his songs. And his songs got radio play. And his videos got airplay. And more than anything else, he always came off on TV or in his videos and through his music like he was really, really having fun. And that's not something that you see every day in hip hop. And at the time, I mean, you saw rappers, they're mad, walking across stage, cussing at the fans and stuff like that. Heavy D was fun, man. He was fun. His music was fun. Like, if you go and listen to his music, and I implore anybody listening or watching, if you haven't heard a Heavy D album, pick one. Start with the first one, Living Large. This is my favorite. I mean, I'm a little biased, but listen to his music. You're gonna bop your head and you're gonna smile, because that's who Heavy D was. He came through in an era where music was fun, rap was fun, because it wasn't even hip hop back then. I mean, we're talking late 80s into the early 90s. Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, he wasn't gangster at all. But he was a guy who enjoyed, or at least it appeared, to enjoy making music. And he enjoyed himself while he was performing, either on stage or on screen or whatever. But again, he was a very respected MC throughout hip hop. It didn't matter if you were on any coast. People loved Heavy D. Other rappers, MCs respected him. He was an accomplished actor. And that's the thing I think that, people can't lose. The dude was talented. I mean, like, everybody can't make that transition from rap to in front of the camera as far as acting. But I really think, had Hev lived, he would have been an even bigger star in front of the camera. I truly believe that. He was a guy who obviously loved his crew, because it was always Heavy D and the boys. He didn't take the shine away from the boys. Like, it was always, and when you saw Hev, you saw the boys. Who were the boys? DJ Eddie F and his dancers, G Wiz, and the late Trouble T. Roy. Rest in peace. He was a businessman. He was an entrepreneur. He was a guy who really put on for, again, his neighborhood, his city, money earning Mount Vernon. And he was a father as well. And I think we got a chance to see the fatherhood side of Heavy in his latter years. But that's who Heavy D was. He always struck me as a guy like you would want to hang out with. And I can't say that about a lot of rappers, for as talented as Jay-Z is. Jay-Z don't strike me as somebody you want to hang out with. For as talented or as crazy as Kanye West is, you're not hanging out with Kanye. Nobody hangs out with Kanye. That's probably part of the reason why he's as crazy as he is. But I digress. When I think about Heavy, obviously I think about some of my favorite songs from Heavy D. I'll give you 5. And this is going to be tough because I'm going off the top. At 5, it's not a hit, but it's like one of my favorite Heavy D songs off the Living Large album, Nike. I love that joint. I love Nike because one, at the time that this song came out, I want to say again, I was like, I had to be in the 8th grade, maybe. So my shoe game was starting to pick up, for as much as I could say I had a shoe game, that was like what, 3 pairs of sneakers. But Adidas was the thing. And so I was trying to be different because everybody was into Adidas because obviously of Run DMC. But I got into Nike because my uncle played for the New York Giants, as some of you may not know, Harry Carson, and he had a Nike contract. So we got Nikes for free. So, and then of course, around that time, we're talking 86, 87, 88, around that time. I mean, by that time, there's a guy up in Chicago who's blowing up who wears Nike. Little guy by the name of Michael Jordan, right? So to have Nikes on was the thing. So like at my school, middle school and high school, like you either had Nike or you wore Adidas. Like there was no in between. Like nobody was wearing like Converse or anything like that. Like all the cool kids wore Nike or Adidas. And I became a Nike guy, but that was like my anthem. I love this joint. And again, the song, it's a decent song, but it's just one of my favorites. So that's probably 5. 4, I'm gonna go with Big Daddy. I love that joint, man. Heavy just really comes off on this song. He really comes off on this song. And going back to something I said a little earlier, I think that's the thing that you can take away from, like why, or some of the reasons why Heavy was as popular as he was, because even in this song, he's talking to the woman or talking to women, but it's not overt. It's not aggressive. It's not misogynistic. It's lovingly. And I mean, to see a 6'3", 250 something pound, 280 pound dude talking lovely to a woman, you don't get that every day in 1992. So, yeah, Big Daddy's my joint. Number 3, damn. Okay, this is where it gets tight. I gotta say, Somebody for Me. That's my joint. Man, listen. That joint still goes hard to this day. And every time I hear it now, I think about the time when Heavy D was on when he was on the show A Different World and he performed this song. That's always a funny memory and a funny episode too. But yeah, that's my joint. Somebody for Me. Number 2, another one for the ladies, man. Is It Good to You? Come on, man. That's vintage Heavy D right there. Is It Good to You? Never gets old. Never gets old. And then number 1 for me is pretty obvious if you know me. Number 1's got to be Mr. Big Stuff. I mean, what can I say? That joint, anytime it come on, you gotta whop it out. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's a feel good song. And I think part of my love for that song obviously goes back to, hearing it on the first album and, just being a huge fan of Heavy D. So yeah, that's like my number 1 joint. But I'll admit now it's not easy to narrow it down to 5 because Heavy D's got so many joints. I mean, like I didn't even talk about. I mean, I ain't even gonna start naming songs. If I start naming songs, I'll be here all day. Ultimately, Heavy D has a tremendous legacy. As you know, unfortunately, he passed away in, what was it, 2011, November 2011. And I want to say, wasn't it? I think it was a heart attack. But and he was young. I want to say Hev was like 44, something like that. He was just really scratching the surface, in my opinion. Um, I think he could have done more musically, but I think at that particular time, I think Heavy D, he literally was about to take off. And I mean, he was already acting, but I could really see where his career, like I said, in front of the camera was going to take off. He died November 8th, 2011. He was 44 years old. And it still sucks that Heavy D's not here because I think he has a tremendous legacy. I think he's one of those guys in hip hop that made a huge impact, but doesn't get talked about as much, if at all. And he probably doesn't get talked about as much as he should. For one, Heavy D truly paved the way for the big guys. He was a guy, again, a big man who could rap, who could act, who could dance. And he wasn't afraid to show his talents. And again, you go watch a Heavy D video, you're going to see his teeth because Heavy D is having a good time in the video. He's smiling and it's fun music. But he paved the way for the big guys. I mean, like, and I'll give you, like, hear me out. The Fat Boys were out when Heavy D was out, but the Fat Boys were more of a novelty. Like, they were there kind of to make fun of their weight. Heavy D, from songs like Mr. Big Stuff to Overweight Lovers in the House, which is another banger. I mean, he was like, hey, this is who I am. Accept me for who I am, but understand too that I am dope. And you're going to listen to me rhyme about dope, and I'm going to seduce your woman. I'm going to big her up. I'm going to, love her, but I'm also going to let her know that, I'm that dude. And I thought that was always dope, man. He was always smooth with the ladies. Ladies love Heavy D. And the fellas loved Heavy D as far as, an MC, Like I said, I don't know anybody didn't like Heavy D. If you tell me you didn't like Heavy D, at that particular time, I think you didn't have a pulse. So, but he definitely paved the way for big guys. He wasn't a novelty act as far as his weight, but he paved the way for guys like Fat Joe, Big Pun, of course, Biggie, and then down the line, somebody like Rick Ross. If you don't have a Heavy D, maybe these dudes never exist, honestly. And you can't say that for a lot of people. But I mean, from his acting to his music, he left behind a great legacy for people to tap into. You know what I always say, particularly when artists leave, when they pass away, you press play and bring them back to life. Heavy was a guy that, had a great deal of commercial success. But he also had respect amongst his peers and in the hip hop community. And I think he's still slightly underrated because he never gets mentioned in the greatest MCs of all time or anything like that. But he's respected and loved. And I think at the end of the day, that's all you want. And he was a dude that could start the party. He's a dude that could scoop up your lady. But more importantly, he was a genuine guy. He was, again, a cool ass dude that you would want to hang out with. And you can't say that about everybody. But we definitely miss Hev. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for me. Thank you for checking out this edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast. The podcast drops every Thursday at midnight. From time to time, we'll drop bonus episodes on Sundays. Be sure to hit us up on Cash App if you would like to contribute to the 12 Kyle podcast. $TWELVEKYLE. We're on streaming platforms, all streaming platforms, wherever you're watching or listening. Hit us up. You can check us out on YouTube as well. Again, that's going to do it for me. I am your boy 12 Kyle. I'll catch you guys next time. 5,000.